Hey everybody, it's Andrew Martin from Andrew Martin Energy, and I am bringing your weekly Oracle card reading to you. The last full week of June that I'm going to be reading. This month has just flown by, and here we are like sliding into the back half of the year. Like I said last week's reading, it's going to be the holidays before we know it. Until that time, we have a lot to get through, and I'm really, really looking forward to today's reading. I suppose you could call this the solstice edition. I had kind of spaced the solstice this year. Normally, I'll do like some energy gatherings and like group events for the solstices and equinoxes, but it just kind of spaced it this year. My mind just went in one ear and out the other. Anyway, I'm really, really looking forward to reading for you this week. As always, this is how we do it. We do one card for Monday, Tuesday, a second card for Wednesday, Thursday, and then I'll draw a third card for Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Once we have the week out of the way, then I will draw a fourth card, which will be the answer to your question. And what that means is you'll have an opportunity to pause the video, close your eyes, find that thread of connection, ask whatever question is on your heart, in your mind, at the center of your experience, or on the surface of your life right now, and the card that I draw will be your answer. Obviously, since I'm reading for the collective, this may not be super specific to your experience. Although, let me know in the comments, have you found that these readings are spot on for you? I know many of you replied last week when I asked about, do you watch at the beginning of the week or the end of the week? And you shared that these readings were pretty spot on for you. So if that's been the case for you, I would love to hear that in the comment section. Would love to know how these readings have been supporting you. And so we'll do the question, the card for your question at the end. And again, if you're looking for something specific to your life and you want to ask specific questions about what's going on for you individually, I do offer personal readings. You can find all the information at andrewmartin.energy. And I'll also put that link in the description below so that you can access my booking calendar. But on with the reading. So I'm going to take a couple seconds to get these cards woken up, get the energies moving, and then we'll do the reading. See you in a second. Okay, so here we go. Man, those cards were ready. Sometimes I have to shuffle them a lot to really get the sense that they're ready to go, and that's how I can tell by the sound of the shuffle. And man, right out of the gate, pretty much they were ready to go. Here we go. Monday, Tuesday, stand your ground. You know, what I see when I'm looking at the Stand Your Ground card is I see this column of light. I see this being standing in a pillar of light. And I also see the arm raised as in like triumph, as in like, yes, yes, yes. And I get the sense here that what this is really asking of you for Monday and Tuesday is to stand your ground, but not in a defensive way. This is not the stand your ground in the terms of like, I have something to prove, or I have an agenda, or there's an insecurity within me that I'm trying to convince myself that I feel as good as I'm saying I feel. And so standing my ground becomes this sort of defensive, like entitled kind of hands on the hips, like, no, this is what I mean and this is what I say. And there's nothing wrong with asserting ourselves in this way. However, this speaks to me of something higher. This speaks to me of something bigger. This speaks to me of more than just defending something from the ego perspective. This speaks to me of the work that you have done to really access the light that you are. And what I see is this column of light shining down, like literally standing in this beam of light that also is emanating, right? So you are being shown upon, right? The light is shining on you, and you are also emanating your own light. And what I see here is this light connecting, right? You can see this glow around this figure, and how it's connecting with this larger source of light, which we can, in this sense, I'm getting the sense of the sun. Again, the the solstice coming up and really seeing that balance of light and dark, and seeing that we're at the longest day. And now we begin to move towards the shorter days. What this is telling me is the light is within you. This is no surprise. We know it's all within. It's just that sometimes we need a reminder of these truths. Sometimes we lose our way, right? Sometimes we forget. Sometimes in the grind of the day-to-day and the like trying to make it happen and trying to make it work and trying to figure out and trying to do right by ourselves and the people that we love and the responsibilities and the commitments that we have made, it can be really, really easy sometimes to lose your way. And what this card is saying is stand your ground against those voices that are saying, is it really true? Can I really trust it? Am I really an eternal, infinite being of light? Or am I just some poor slob who just happened to stumble across this human incarnation, and here I am just struggling through it. That is a very real perspective that we often take. And this is certainly not about diminishing those doubts or diminishing the part of us that holds those doubts. What this is about is unconditionally accepting the part of you that may still not believe it. Putting your arm around him and saying, baby, I get it. I understand why you wouldn't believe. I understand why you wouldn't trust. And I understand why it might be hard for you to believe the truth that you are this being of light. You are a pillar of light. And that's what this card is saying, is standing your ground with yourself and saying, I know you don't believe it yet, but I promise you, if you stick with me, because I'm not going anywhere, and if you stick with me, I will show you how amazing you are. I will show you the truth. I will remind you of how spectacular and amazing you really are, and you will remember. When you feel it, when you feel the light moving through you, when you feel that sense of like, there's something here, there's something more, there's something bigger, there's something that maybe I don't have words for yet. Maybe I can't put my finger on it. Maybe it's just a feeling, right? It's something in the air. It's buzzing. It's like electricity. It's like when there's a thunderstorm coming in, or a really, really big storm, a storm with a lot of electrical, lightning and thunder and a lot of electrical activity. And you can feel that in the air, right? It's like the hairs on your hair. The hairs on your arm stand up, and you can feel that sense of like excitement and the electricity, and you may not have words for it, and you may not know where it's coming from, but this is what this card is saying, is trust it. Trust yourself. Stand your ground against those parts of you that still feel unworthy or still feel uncertain, or the part that says, well, I'm not going to believe it until I see it. And you say to that part of yourself as you pull it close, stick with me, and I promise you, there will be no doubt. This is the other thing, is that around the solstice, things tend to take on a slower energy before they quicken, right? It's this sense of like everything kind of coming to a slow down and a stillness, and reaching that unification point, that 0 point where all of the division inside collapses, all of the separation inside collapses, and we really do get a sense of who and what we really are, and we get a taste of that brilliance. This message also, I think, is talking about how right now things might feel like they're slowing down, and after last week's energy and the week before that, the energy building and the sense of like, oh my God, here's the momentum, here's the like, it's really happening, right? I can feel it happening, like the car has started, the train is moving, like you can start to feel the very real experience, or you might be seeing validation and confirmation in your physical life of the things you've been looking for and working towards, and now all of a sudden it feels like the brakes and everything's coming to a screeching halt. That's okay. That doesn't mean anything. All that means is that we're in the solstice and things are starting to slow down as we move into the shift, as the light the days get shorter and we start to move towards the end of the year. So it's okay. Stand your ground against those doubts. Stand your ground against those fears, and not in a way of opposing them. You pull them with you, to you. You bring them next to you. You put your arm around them and say, all right, babes, we're doing this. We're doing this together. We're doing this as a unit. We're doing this as a family. We're doing this as an inner, a unified inner self. And it's okay if part of you is doubting. Doesn't mean all of you is in doubt. It's like if your pinky is hurt or your pinky is broken, doesn't mean the whole body is in that state, right? So allow yourself to feel what you're feeling. Allow yourself to acknowledge what's coming up, even if it's resistance and doubt and frustration. And just remind yourself of who and what you really are. And stand your ground against taking the bait of falling into those old patterns, those old fears, and those old doubts. Because they're not really true. They're not really true. Look, a part of us that is skeptical, skepticism can be healthy, right? Skepticism keeps us honest. Skepticism can be, a beautiful mirror of like, oh, do I really believe that? Is that really true for me? And so just because part of you is second guessing it or having doubts, doesn't mean it's all falling apart. It's just a part of you that needs a little bit more reassurance, a part of you that needs to be held closer and loved more. And you just say, look, I understand why you may not believe, but we're going anyway. And we're going to continue to do what we came here to do. So midweek, balance. Balance. 11 is everywhere right now. This is the Justice card in the traditional tarot. A black border denotes a major arcana in this deck. So we're talking about a major theme. Things are coming into balance, and the sense that I get here, and there's so much imagery here that's right? We have the wings, we have the sphere of the light, which is the feminine. We have the four suits of the traditional tarot, and the wand and the sword. These are phallic symbols. These are the phallus. These are masculine energy, or that's one way they can be interpreted. It is that that forward motion. It is that piercing of the potential. It is that assertion of the will, of the self. And we see that even reflected here, right? It is that emanation of the self, the benevolent self who is balanced in the masculine and the feminine self, just putting the stake down and staking a claim. And, it's sort of like that scene in, I don't know which one of the Lord of the Rings, but when Gandalf puts down the staff and says, "You shall not pass." That's kind of what it's saying to these fears, right? Standing your ground on Monday and Tuesday to those fears and anxiety. This is what is bringing things into balance. And there's also an acknowledgement here of this liminal state that we are currently in as things are sort of shifting into a new stream during the solstice. And we're still kind of, picking up the pieces from the eclipses. So we're shifting kind of this sideways elevator. Thank you, Stephanie Azaria, for that phrase. Sideways elevator is permanently in my lexicon. But, this idea that things are in balance, and, it's like when you throw a ball up in the air and the pendulum swinging, and there's that moment when it reaches its apex and it seems to just kind of hang in the air before it begins to come back down or swing the other way. So that's what this balance card is saying. Again, allow the breath, allow the space between the in-breath and the out-breath. Allow the space between the notes. Allow the blank page between the chapters. Because things still may be coming into balance in your own experience and in your own life. And that's a lot of what the solstice and the equinoxes represent, is there's a balancing energetically that happens. And it's represented by the balancing of the light, or, the waning of the light, or the increasing of the light, depending on which one we're celebrating or which one we find ourselves in. But the balance card, and one thing I love about this image of this being is you see the hands are open. The hands are open, palms forward. The head is bowed in gratitude, in reverence, in humility of like, yes, thank you for all of it. Thank you for all of it. Thank you for all of it. That's what true liberation is finding a way to say thank you for all of it. And know that the energy serves you. And that the energy is here because of you. And so this palms open, the hands open, hands up, head bowed is just thank you. And it's also the hands open to receive. So the hands open to receive and say like, yeah, I am grateful for all that I have. I acknowledge all of the goodness that is present in my life. And I'm also ready to receive what's next. And I know that as things come into balance, it will become very, very clear. So the balance card is saying, observe, watch things. We can also see this figure with the wings, presumably, and they're up in the clouds. So presumably they're kind of looking down on the world, looking down on life. So we can even see this as sort of the creator self. Some people call it the higher self. I call it the creator self. And, it's in that state of observing, right? It's in the state of observance. It's just watching what's going on, watching what's moving in and out of your awareness. And just trusting that whatever's ready to go is going to go. Whatever's ready to come in is going to come in. And what needs to be balanced internally in the meantime to open the space for these endings and beginnings. That's really what's happening right now. So just allow it to come into balance. Allow it to be. Allow it to show you what it is. And just trust and have faith. I'm also getting the message here about the wings. Trust yourself. That's been a common thread through the past couple of weeks' readings, has been just trust yourself. Your wings are ready. And just trust yourself, because there's a little bit of a balancing act that needs to happen. And anything externally that's balancing is only a reflection of what's happening internally as well. So within, so without. So just let it happen. Don't get too attached. Don't get, again, palms open, hands open, not like grasping, not clutching. Just hands open. Easy does it. And then for Friday, Saturday, Sunday, obstacles and challenges. Dun, dun, dun. Now, an interesting thing here, the number 5. And you know how much I love the number 5, especially recently, because, again, to share my perspective, 4 denotes balance, right? It's the 4 corners, the 4 directions. And, when all of those corners are flush and the angles are true and square, and we've got, 4 right angles that are perfect, that creates balance. And then number 5 is a step forward from a place of balance. And oftentimes, when we're proceeding forward, especially when we're coming from a new sense of self, this is the thing, y'all. You have done so much work to stand on this new platform. And I've been working with my carnelian like crazy. Like the root and the sacrum are going through it this week. So it is really the acknowledgement that you have done your work and you're standing on the new foundation. But oftentimes when you're stepping forward from the new thing, it feels really foreign. It feels really unsure because you've never done it from this perspective before, right? It's like you're suddenly in a new town or a new country and there's new cultures, there's new things that are acceptable, there's new ways to do it, there's new, modes of operation, there's new things to experience, and a lot of it just feels really daunting, feels overwhelming. And so sometimes it can feel like, oh my God, is this really the right step? Is this really the right choice? I don't know. But just remember, you're stepping forward from a new platform of truth. So it's gonna look a little weird at first. It might feel a little uncomfortable because you're just not doing it the old way anymore. And you may not necessarily have the muscle memory, right? It's like if you're an exerciser or an athlete and you're really, really adept with your physical body and really in touch with your physical body, you know this when you're learning a new skill or going through a new level, like let's just say you added, 20 pounds to your bench press or you're trying a new way of doing something, you have to learn new muscle memory. So in the beginning, it's really focused and you have to be really clear and you're like, okay, my breath and my posture and my position and are my feet the right width apart and is my root engaged? Am I too far backwards or too far forward? So there's so much to think about and so much to take in consideration when you're first learning these new skills and these new ways of being. But here's the key. Number one, you can see these little beings here, right? The fairies, these little lighted beings. We could call these fairies. They could be spirit guides. These could just be some little orbs. Your path is being lit. So even though you may be stepping into a new place where you're like, oh, I don't know, it's okay. You're not alone. That's the first message. The second message is that look at the gap between the bridge or between the two pieces to stand on, right? There's this gap right here. And it might feel like a huge leap. It might feel like so monumental to get from where you are to where you're going or where you want to be. But it's not really that far. It's not really that far. And here is the key. See that water there? See that river there? And that represents the emotional intuitive self. So your feeling of things is going to be your key for Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Even though it might feel like a monumental leap, and even though you're in this new world where, up is down and down is up and black is white and white is black and left is right or whatever, and it doesn't feel familiar, close your eyes, go within, take a breath, and just feel the resonance of your truth. Feel the resonance of what is calling you forward, what is moving you forward, what is carrying you forward. Sometimes it might feel like what is pushing you forward, but that's okay. You're going to make it. And so when all else fails and it feels like there's this big insurmountable gap that you can never possibly make it across, just go into your intuitive self, go into your feeling feminine self. Just ask, okay, does this feel like I'm moving in the right direction? Does this feel like the right choice? Does this feel like the right time? And even if it's like I'm 51% sure, that's enough. That's enough. There's another piece here that I want to call your attention to, and I don't know if you can see it, but I'm going to put the card really close. So see, there's like the dove, right? There's this image of the dove that this person is standing on. Again, this being with wings. This is the grace of spirit. This is the grace of your higher aspects. This is the grace of the light that you are, saying, honey, I wouldn't have called you here if this wasn't the next right step. I wouldn't have brought you to this place if there wasn't value here for you. This, I think, is really, really key as we move into these new uncharted territory. It's really, really important to remember something, and this is a perspective that I like to use just to let myself off the hook. That really, really helps. And, in these times where it feels intense or that we're moving into realities or versions of reality that we're like, oh, this is all new. I don't know how to do this yet. Just trust in the value of your experience. Let yourself off the hook with something needed to be wrong or right, good or bad. Especially when you're facing a big leap and you just don't know. And it just feels like, I think I'm doing the right thing. Just trust that you are here because there is value in your experience. There's something you need, or there's something that needs you, right? Sometimes you're the teacher and sometimes you're the student. And either way, it doesn't matter. Your presence is required where you are now, right here, right now, wherever you are. It requires the fullness of your presence. And if you're finding yourself in a place that you don't really like and you're not really digging the circumstances, go deeper into yourself. Surrender more fully to it and just ask, Spirit, please help me to see the value of my circumstances. And that's it. It doesn't have to be right or wrong. It doesn't have to be good or bad. It can just be where you are, because sometimes we need the challenge. Sometimes we need the struggle. It's that old adage of the butterfly. When the caterpillar weaves itself into the cocoon and then becomes caterpillar soup and then begins to emerge later as the butterfly, it struggles to get out of the chrysalis or the cocoon. It struggles to get out of that, that shell that it created for itself. But it needs the struggle, because it's that struggle that strengthens its wings. So trust your wings. Your wings. Trust that they need this little bit of push and pull, this little bit of back and forth. Whatever inner conflict or tension might be currently present, it's valuable in some way. So as much as you can, remember to go into that observer state, right? Hands open, head bowed in gratitude, and just looking at your life, just looking at your experience, just being in the observer mode. And that will help you decide, is it time to leap? And if not, when? And is this the right leap to take? All of those questions that we have, you just find the answers in here. So trust that your emotional, feminine, intuitive self will carry you across the leap. You just have to take the time to get quiet and listen. And also know that the way is being lit by all of your beings here, right? 1, 2, 3. We've got 6 little lighted beings here carrying you across the chasm. And again, don't forget the number 5. It is the first step forward. Again, 5 is a lot like 1 in that it's a new step. It's a new beginning. It's proceeding from something, but it's not necessarily balanced. It's not complete, and that's the point. The point is just to keep going. So obstacles and challenges doesn't necessarily mean things are going to fall apart. And again, if they do, it's just part of the process. If anyone out there is a baker, I love to bake. And you know what I mean? Like, sometimes things just don't work out. You can follow the recipe, you can take all the advice in the world, and it just, for whatever reason, it's too humid, it's too hot, the baking soda was old, whatever, and it just doesn't turn out. That's okay. Don't let the perception of a challenge or an obstacle become something that just, shatters you and you fall apart. Sometimes it's not a hurdle, it's a stepping stone. Sometimes it's not here to block our way, it's here to get us to look up higher and go, oh, I see it's up there, and I just got to level up my thinking. I got to level up my beliefs. I got to level up what I think is possible. So now it's time for the question. What you can do here is pause the video. Take a second, tune in, tap in, find that thread of connection, and then ask whatever question you are dying to know the answer to. And the card that I pull, oop, there's your answer. It just leapt right out. Here we go, disruption. This is the Tower card in traditional tarot. Again, black border, major, major arcana. The answer for you is the old one has to end. It has to die first before it can be reborn. And just because, I've said this before, just because something is leaving your experience or something is ending doesn't mean it's leaving forever. It just means it needs to die in its current iteration. The current version just needs to collapse before the new geometry, the new thing can be born. And disruption is not necessarily a bad thing. Chaos is not the sign that you're doing something wrong. It just means things have an ending. Things have an ending. And you have to be willing to let it go in order to receive the new, because here's what happens. If I'm hanging on to something, where are my hands? Not open to receive. Not open to receive. So you just got to let it go, babe. You just got to let it go. Because the new thing wants to come in, and what you are seeking is also seeking you. But when you're out there running and chasing and scrambling and reaching, then you've left your center, and the thing that wants you can't find you, because it can only find you when you're at your center. So disruption means, the ending means it's got to happen. It's got to happen, right? It's like the seasons, right? The things that grow and flourish in spring and summer, we harvest them and then they die. Or if they're a perennial, then they die for the season and they have to come back. They need to recharge their roots. They need to, recharge their rhizomes or their bulbs or whatever they're growing from over the winter. And things have to collapse and die so that all of the beautiful greenery that I'm looking out the window right now, it has to die and then turn brown, and then it leaches its nutrients and its minerals back into the soil. And then in the spring, when the rains come and the snow melts and that water starts flowing again, it starts to incorporate all of those minerals and all of those trace elements back into the soil, and it germinates the seed so the new thing can sprout. So disruption, endings, collapse, chaos is just a part of the cycle. It's a part of creation. Matter is not created or destroyed. Energy is not created or destroyed. It's only transformed. So every molecule that makes up me, that makes up this pen, that makes up anything you can touch, taste, feel, smell, it's not new. It's not new. These are the same molecules that have been floating around since all of creation started. We're just recycling them. So disruption in many ways is freeing up your resources. Disruption, by letting it collapse and letting it die, you're freeing all of the energy that was tied up in that, the old version of it. And once you let it collapse, then that energy is released. Once the geometry is gone, once the geometry is no longer supporting the thing, the relationship, because that's how I see everything as geometry. So if the geometry is no longer supporting the relationship, the belief, or the physical, thing, once that geometry collapses, then the energy is, unleashed, and it can become something new. So yeah, I get it. It may not be easy to let this go. In fact, it feels like it's difficult. And I see this image of this person here with their hands across their heart, like across their chest, saying, no, I don't want to let it go. I need this. I need this. You don't. You don't. One of the hardest lessons that I have had to learn, and one of the toughest lessons that I often have to share with clients, is that the only things that ever go are the things that no longer serve and support us. So if something can be taken from us, it will be. So if it can be taken, let it be, because the only things that ever go are what no longer serve and support you or never belong to you in the first place. So as hard as it might be, just take a deep breath, open your hands and say, okay, Spirit, I allow. I allow. Feels like a big week energetically. It's no surprise on the heels of the solstice, but you've got this. I have faith in you. I believe in you. I know you can do this. Thank you as always for watching. If you want to book a personal reading, go to andrewmartin.energy. I would love if you hit that subscription button. I would love if you shared this with your networks, with your communities, and with your circles. Oh, you can also find me on Facebook now, andrewmartin.energy on Facebook. Have a fabulous week. I love you. I'll talk to you soon. Mwah. Bye.